Welcome back. As always, be sure to leave a comment if you have anything to add to this video or any comments about the channel in general. Also, be sure to check my other channel, YC Games. It's one with the orange logo. And with all that out of the way, let's get right into this because this one is going to be a rough one, unfortunately. So I want to start off by saying that this is going to be a completely spoiler-free review. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, don't worry. It's not going to get ruined here. Also, I have not seen any other reviews, but the past couple of days just scrolling on YouTube and seeing thumbnails and video titles, it seems that most people are not a fan of this movie. And after seeing it for myself, unfortunately, I do have to agree. It is a pretty bad movie. Not even like as far as a Borderlands fan, even just as a movie, it was pretty underwhelming, which I hate to say it. I went in super optimistic thinking that maybe, the trailers just showed the worst parts of it and it's actually really good. That's never how it goes, and obviously the trailers made it look pretty bad in my opinion. So going in, I didn't really expect too much, but I was hoping to be pleasantly surprised, and unfortunately my fears were just realized. And I'm going to go into some more specifics, but overall, blanket statement, it was just a pretty bad movie. Now, it had some good parts that I'll get into, but for the most part, pretty disappointing. Now, because this video is probably going to be mostly negative, I want to start with the positives. And number one, I'm going to butcher the name, I'm sorry, but Florian Munteanu as Krieg killed it. Obviously, he just had to look the part and, be just a super awesome psycho badass. And I think he did it pretty well. Now, I have some issues with it. I'll cover that in the later on in the negatives. But overall, I think he had the look. He had the feel of Krieg, and I'm pretty sure they just ripped voice lines directly from the games, which is exactly what you should do. Or at least got someone that sounded very similar to say things very similar to what he would say in the games. So Krieg, big plus here. Now, he wasn't like a real big part of the plot, and that's kind of whatever. He's more just, the muscle for the team. And I'm okay with that. Like, that's all he has. He has to serve his purpose. All the characters have their purpose, and that's his. But that's a big plus for me. And continuing on with some good casting, Benjamin Byron Davis as Marcus, that just felt like Marcus. If you're going to have a live-action Marcus, that was a very good live-action Marcus. Same thing with Cate Blanchett, actually wasn't awful as Lilith. I thought from the trailers and the initial casting, she was going to be terrible. She actually wasn't too bad. And even Kevin Hart as Roland. Now, definitely should have cast someone different, like not as big of a name that actually can really play the part. But he seemed to actually try here, and it didn't feel as off-putting as I was afraid it was going to. So I'm going to mark that as a positive, that it wasn't as bad as I thought, but it is kind of a negative still because, yeah, they definitely should have got someone different. The only other real positive I have was it was cool to see, at least a version of the characters on the screen. They're probably not the best rendition of the characters, but just us getting a Borderlands movie, it's cool. It's fun to see. It's a worthwhile thing to go see, even though I'm going to just completely take a shit on that with the rest of this video. So that's about all I can say. And some of the action sequences were kind of good, but for the most part, not. But that's just another positive. I'm gonna toss in that bucket. Now for the bulk of the video, which is very unfortunate. Again, I wanted to like the movie. I went in with an open mind. I was hoping it'd be great. But unfortunately, a lot of the casting decisions really did just catch up to it. And I don't know why they did the things they did. Surprisingly, Jamie Lee Curtis as Tannis is probably the worst of the casting, which shocked me. And it seemed like everyone else thought Kevin Hart as Roland was going to be the worst. But he actually put his all into it, and it wasn't as jarring as I thought. But Jamie Lee Curtis as Tannis, it just wasn't Tannis. And I think that's more on the writing. Like, they wanted to incorporate Tannis in the story more than what she probably should have been. And it just doesn't fit with her character in general. So, really having anyone in that role probably wasn't going to be a good idea. She should have took a lot more backseat and not been in as the action as she was, because that's just not who she is in the game. So it's just really weird to see that. Also, Jack Black is Claptrap. Again, I thought that was going to be one of the better casting decisions, but they like modulate his voice so much you can't even tell it's Jack Black. And they don't do a good job actually making it sound like Claptrap. So it's a weird in between of not quite Jack Black, not quite Claptrap. Why hire a big name actor? Why wouldn't they just get the voice of Claptrap? I'm sure it's just so they can slap the name. Oh, Jack Black's in this movie. That's what it seemed like they did a lot of these casting decisions of, just so they could slap a big Hollywood name on it and say, look, we got this guy. We got Kevin Hart. We got Jamie Lee Curtis. We got Cate Blanchett. Oh, isn't that great? And that really is just the detriment of the movie. Like, they should have just got some no-name actors that actually look and feel the part. And just to be clear, that's not a diss or bash on any of these actors. Obviously, they're famous for a reason. They've done great work in other movies. It's just they shouldn't have been cast because they're famous. They should have been cast because they fit the role. And none of them really quite do. Now, I gave my approval of the ones that actually at least tried to play the part really well. But everyone else just really kind of fell flat. And just very, very bizarre decisions. And that being said, the story as a whole, very bizarre decision. Like, they tried to tell three different not random stories. Like, they all kind of mashed together, but it was all just a jangled mess. And they had to rush through the plot. I'm doing this without spoiling anything, but just overall, it all just felt very rushed and not very satisfying. I feel like they wanted to go for like a ragtag group of survivors going out there and hunting a vault. Like, that's what the trailers made it sound like. That's what Borderlands kind of is. Just this random group of people that come together and go do a vault. And that would be a great plot. That's a very easy plot, I would say, to make into a compelling movie if you have a good group of characters. But none of them really seem to mesh together. And they don't really have time to even give us time to like them together. Like, again, it's just such a fast-paced plot. They're just going and going and going and going that it's just frustrating, really, that we don't get to see them actually come together and like be a team and do team bonding exercises. It's upsetting. Like, I would love for all these characters to get along and see them be a really cool team, because that's what the characters are in the game. They're an awesome team when they come together and, you know, do all these other whatevers. So it's just disappointing that we didn't get to see that. And on top of that, the action really was not great. I mentioned earlier, towards the end, there was a couple fights that were entertaining, but most of the time, it was just like the early 2000s kind of style of Hollywood action movies, where it's like just constant jump cuts, cut here, cut here. Like, you can't even see a punch being thrown without there being like 40 cuts in there. Obviously, that's an exaggeration, but it's so jarring. And I feel like as movies like are progressing away from that, where we actually get to see the action, like look at John Wick franchise, where you actually get to tell what's going on. You're not getting whiplash and, oh my god, flashing lights and bright colors, oh, something exciting must be going on. It feels like we moved past that in movies, but not this movie. This movie is just takes me back to why I never was really a fan of action movies when I was younger, because it was just constant jump cuts and flashing lights that I'm like, I don't know what's happening. Like, I guess something exciting is going on, but I can't really tell what it is. And a lot of the action sequences is that. Now, it gets better towards the end. Like, I want to say second to last fight that I can really think of in my head was a lot better in that, actually showing you at least some stuff, but it had the remnants of still showing too many jumps, too many cuts, in my opinion. And it's just unfortunate, because I feel like they had some good set pieces there. Like, there's a lot of really cool action sequences. The set designs were awesome. I guess I should have put that in my positive. A lot of the set designs were cool to see, even though they weren't quite in with the movie like setting it's supposed to be. Anyway, it was cool to see, and they had a lot of cool stunts and gunfights and, you know, fist fights set up that it should have been awesome to see. But there's just so many cuts, you can't tell what's going on. You get whiplashes watching the stupid movie, and it's just upsetting to see, because behind it, I can tell there's a cool scene, but you can't really see it, and it's just very unfortunate, because I would love to see an actual, like, drawn out, like, one shot of all these awesome characters doing their thing, shooting, fighting, whatever. And we just don't get to see that because there's just too many dang cuts. And that's maybe a skeptic on the film franchise as a whole, but it feels like we're moving away from that. So it just feels weird that this almost went back in time to what it used to be like. And before I get too far away from that point, the set designs were really cool. Like I should have put in a positive section of the video, but they weren't Borderlands locations. Like some of them, I could feel like, okay, this feels like in the world, but they name dropped so many different things from the games, which I thought was really cool at first, until you realize they just name drop it for no reason. Like they'll say a place from a game, and they go there and it's like, oh, this does not look at all like that place from the game. They do it twice that I can really vividly remember, because I remember thinking like, oh shit, I know that place. And then we go there and it's nothing like it. Now, obviously, it's not going to be a one-for-one. It's a movie, not a video game. It's not going to look exactly the same. But they don't even get the same feeling, which just blows my mind. Why even name it then? Don't give it the same name if it's not even at least going to be reminiscent of the original spot that's from the games. It just blows my mind that they did that. I don't know why. Like, honestly, I am excited for, like, when this movie comes to, like, streaming or DVD or whatever, because I want to see the one-by-one videos people are going to make of, here's the location from the game, here's the location of the movie. They look nothing alike. At least not from what I remember. Maybe I'm just wildly misremembering, but there were a bunch of things that just didn't look like how they do in the games. And, again, not going to be one-for-one, but at least make me think, oh, yeah, I do recognize that. There were very few things that I really recognized. Speaking of also just dropping names, they did that so much in the beginning of the movie. Every time a character shows on stage, on screen, they say the name like 3 times. It's like, oh, okay, so this is, Roland. Oh, Roland. Oh, this is Roland. Did you know Kevin Hart's Roland? Because Jesus Christ, they tell you like 4 times in the first 10 minutes of the movie. I don't understand why. I do understand why. It's still people that don't know the characters can get the names, but it just feels like they're really pushing like, hey, you know this character, or hey, you know this location, hey, you know this gun, you know this whatever. They drop the names so frequently, it really feels like it's supposed to be like a wink to the fans, like, hey, you know us from the games, right? I mean, I know the name, but I don't know what I'm being shown here because this is not the same thing from the games. Sorry, I got on a little bit of a tangent there. Weird rant aside, they name drop a lot, and it doesn't really pay off to anything. The one thing that is a positive, again, I should have put in the positives, is there's quite a few cool little Easter eggs in the background. Like, I saw a wanted poster for McZafford, which is just cool to see. Like, that's the kind of thing I expected, and that's the kind of wink to the fans that I want to see. Don't call attention to it. Just have something in the background, like simple as a wanted poster. And for the fans that know. And that's it. Leave it at that. Now, my last point here, because I really can't talk about much more without really spoiling it, is that they changed stuff from the lore that didn't need to be changed. Now, I'm not going to be a huge stickler. I get it. It's a movie made for a different audience. They got to make some changes. I'm okay with that. I'm not going to be the Lilith's hair color should have been more pink. No, none of that. But they made such random, drastic changes that didn't actually do anything for the plot. Like, they almost wanted to tell a completely different story that wasn't Borderlands related and morph the plot around it. Like, they had to change the lore of the world to fit this weird mold of a story they wanted to tell. And it wasn't even a very good story, in my opinion. So it's just really weird. Why would they not stick with the laws and the lore of the franchise? I don't know. Again, I'm not going to be a stickler. I'm not going to be, angry man shakes his stick like, oh, you messed with how it used to be. It used to be so much better. But they just changed things that were completely unnecessary. Like, and this is going to be a, I guess, spoiler for The Last of Us TV series. It's like how they got rid of the spores from the games in the TV series. Like, they changed it when it didn't need to be changed, and in my opinion, they changed it for the worse. Like, some of the stuff they did, like, there's no reason to get rid of the spores in the TV series. And there's no reason to change stuff in the Borderlands movie that they did. Again, I'm not going to spoil it. There's no need to change it, And the change they made was like significantly worse than what the world we already know and love is. So it's just very bizarre, a lot of the choices that were made. That's kind of the whole thing about this movie. They made so many bizarre choices that didn't need to be made. It could have been such a simple story, just have, some good jokes, some fun action, and actually get the characters that we like as close to real life as you can. Obviously, it's impossible to be one for one. The voices are going to be slightly different. They're not going to look the exact same, but they could have got a lot closer than what they did. And that's kind of the disappointing part, is I don't know why they chose to go this route. It really feels like they should have just not even released the movie. Like, they definitely put the budget into it. It looks great a lot of the times. The sets look really cool. Like, it looks like they spent a lot of money on the sets and most of the costumes and everything around it. And there was a lot of cool little Easter eggs in there for the fans that were fun to see. But they just didn't put the time and effort into the plot. The story was just so mishmatched and messy. It just was not a fun movie for casuals, and it was not a fun movie for fans, at least in my opinion. I'm sure people are going to love it, and that's great. I don't want to take that away from anyone, but it just wasn't for me. And it's very unfortunate to say, because I'm a huge fan of the franchise, and ever since they first announced they were even going to start working on a movie, I was super excited. And who knows? I remember seeing in the release date stuff that they kept calling this the first Borderlands movie, so maybe they have sequels planned out, and hopefully it'll work out better. Again, the casting was not as bad for the most part as what I thought, and I feel like they have a good foundation here to do something better if they actually made a good story that fits in the Borderlands lore. But that's just me. I'm sorry this one's a bit more of a rambling one. It's just, very disappointing. And it's not unexpected from the trailers and stuff. Everyone, I think, kind of saw this coming. And I'm very sorry to see this. Maybe I'll do a spoiler review in the future. I doubt it, because I really don't want to think about this movie much more. I'll probably see it again when it comes on streaming or DVD or whatever. And maybe my opinion will change. Maybe I'll catch some more Easter eggs and stuff, and it'll just make me super happy that I'll forget all the blatantly bad things. I doubt it, though. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you saw the movie, am I being too harsh? Was I being too nice? Because I'm really trying to be nice on it, honestly, because I want it to be good, and I'm just sorry to say that it wasn't. But thanks so much for watching, as always, and see you in the next one. Bye.